Ah, here it is.
So, let me, sorry. Who wants to ask some questions? Some discussions. Who wants to start? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, both the speakers.
Speak as loud as you can, please. Great.
Thank you very much, both the speakers. Yvette Hernandez, a PhD from UCL Institute of Education, University College of London. For me, the question about the presentations is, I really wanted to hear more about the kind of politics that personal mobilization are producing. Can you hear me?
Okay, will you get the mic?
Okay. For me, the question is, what kind of politics are being produced in those spaces of cross-mobilization? And how important are these kind of politics in terms of really making the possibility of building cross-movement mobilization? So I really wanted to hear more about this aspect.
Yes, thank you, Sascha Wönig from Göttingen. I've just become interested in movements quite recently and working on institutions and comparative institutional theory before. And what I found interesting in both your presentations was that the context is so much absent when you describe these cross-movement mobilization processes, because it's very much about the characteristics of the movements that you're talking about, which of course is very important. But I'm wondering about the context. Institutional context makes a big difference, for example, for the collaboration between religious and social reformist group, depending on which different state-church relations, for example, you have in the country or something like that. So I'm wondering how this cross-movement mobilization will make it necessary to, study more the let's say, the field, the institutional context, or where movements act, to find out that maybe that's more important sometimes than the traits of the movement themselves.
Or wasn't it raising a hand? Yes.
Stefan Rother, University of Freiburg. Thanks for two excellent presentations. I have a question for Peter. I like your example of the C189 convention and the ecosystem of the women's movement coming in. But I think there was another very important ecosystem relevant here, and it was the migrant rights movement. Because I followed the negotiations in Geneva in both years, and it was particularly migrant domestic workers being very active. And my question is that the labor transnational movement studies often sideline migrant worker activists, but there's no labor that is more transnational than migrant labor. So your opinion would be of interest to me.
Thank you. My question is for both presenters. Actually, I wonder if we can also think about cross-movement mobilization as a magnetic field, because I observed, for example, in Turkey, in Gezi protest in 2013, a protest which has started, yes, with the minor initiatives of many different small movements, but then it has attracted spontaneously many of the opponents of the government. So there was not a cross-movement building before the protest, but when the protest has begun, then there was a magnetic field kind of attracting all the opponents with the same adversaries and with the same targets into the same small park, and it has become a new cross-movement interaction field. So it is not like movement building before the protest, but the movement building inside and with the protest after a critical mass. So maybe you can have some comments on that view. Thank you.
Nicole?
Hi, I'm Nicole Dörr from the University of Copenhagen. Thank you so much for those inspiring 2 talks. And I wanted to start with an organization or a network that Peter mentioned in the end, the Domestic Workers Alliance and their impact. And I want to connect it to what Dieter said about brokers and that they're understudy and translation you also mentioned. So I'm one of several people in the room who are interested in how translation can succeed. And the Domestic Workers United were part of the US Social Forum. And they're super multilingual in the United States because of course it's the migrant work and everywhere. And they use with the translating mechanism as a democratic practice inside. And they also diffused it to other organizations. So there is a lot of innovation going on here, and I want you to react to that. And then I want to challenge both of you. How can you talk so positively at a moment when we are seeing another translation going on from the right, the diffusion of hatred? What's the challenges of these kind of cross-class translation brokerage, cross-race in the United States that has to happen now? Thank you.
We take one more and then we give the speakers a chance to reply and then we can come to a similar. Bettina, can you scream so that we can hear you?
No, I can try.
Okay, great.
Bettina, Christina Dietz from Freie Universität Berlin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for 2 presentations. We were just wondering, we were debating among ourselves and we were wondering, we simply didn't get what actually these 2 concepts of ecosystem versus action system help us better understand some realities of social movements or whatever issue in the field we're studying.
Okay, great. So I suggest Peter to start and then Peter, you're second. Could you understand the questions? I also have take notes so I can summary it again for you.
I had a hard time understanding the questions from the rear because there was a lot of echo in my reception. But let me listen to Dietrich's responses and perhaps that will clarify something.
So I take the easy questions and then you take the rest, okay? Well, I'm not able really to thoroughly answer these questions, but I try at least. And I just noted some keywords. For the first question, I think you were asking about the kind of politics that is produced by cross-movement mobilization. But I cannot really respond to that. I don't see any fundamental or principal difference between what is produced by one movement acting alone or by a coalition of movements. Of course, by a coalition, the usual range of themes is broader, and so also the politics which is criticized affects more people or more departments and so on. So I'm not saying it's the same, but I don't see that there is any inherent logic or political result or problem bound to either cross-movement mobilization or to mono-movement mobilization. So I didn't see your question, the point you were actually targeting in the end. I have to leave it that way. The context is absent. That was the second comment. Yes, I fully agree. Of course, I was also providing some indications about the context, because if you look at the movement, you also have to look at the opponents, you also have to look at the audiences, you have to look at potential allies, but even broader, in the broader perspective, you have to look whether this is an authoritarian system where the means of expression are extremely limited, or whether this is a more or less democratic system. I think personally I'm fully aware of this context, but it was not part of my presentation here, so I was really focusing on the conceptual part. And in that way, of course, this important element is missing or was missing. I agree. The third comment from this student or lady from Turkey, she was emphasizing this attraction of mobilization as a kind of magnetic mechanism or field. I agree. Yes, sometimes you will find that phenomenon. And it runs counter the common assumption of rational choice people who argue whenever there is a big mass demonstration, this was Olson's argument, and the individual is reflecting or agonizing whether he or she should take part in that big demonstration or big event, then the rational calculus would say it doesn't matter. I cannot add much to it when there are already 10,000 people standing there. If there is one more or less, it simply doesn't count, so I stay at home. That was the answer, basically, of rational choice people. But there is this magnetic mechanisms that if 10,000 are already there, I also have to join them. It's important to be there. It's important, and if everybody thinks in the same way, there will not be 10,000 but 50,000 of people. So this element of magnetism, it's sometimes attractive simply in numeric terms, but of course there's also magnetism in other ways. If you think this will be a very creative action, or this will be a memorized action, or this will be an action which will be televised in the same evening or afterwards, and so on. So there are many impulses that attract people against this reflection. Who cares? Further, well, Nicole, you were rightly pointing that similar things happens on the far right or right populist, among right populist groups. Of course, there's a lot of cross-movement mobilization going there. I also mentioned this briefly in one or two of my slides, but I didn't elaborate this. But of course, cross-movement mobilization is not something limited to the progressive groups and movement or left-wing groups. It occurs in every ideological tendencies, more or less. And what we have seen more recently, especially in Germany, is the bridging between the far right, or the Neue Rechte, to be more precise, on the one hand, and what is called or coined as right populists on the other hand. I think in reality you can make an analytical distinction between these kinds of groups. Die Neue Rechte, the new right on the one hand, and of course the old Nazis related to that as well. This is one part of it, and the other part are the neo-populists, but at a closer look they become almost inseparable. So again we have the phenomenon of cross-movement mobilization for certain events, but at the same time a gradual blending of these two camps or movements. Bettina, I think this is the last comment. You were wondering, if I understood it correctly, why this insistence of movements as an action system, why not call it an actor? Was this the essence of your question, or did I get it wrong?
It was about the analytical value of
The value.
the analytical.
Yeah, well, first of all, it changes your language. Of course, as I said before, we are assuming that a movement is choosing or applying a certain strategy to achieve certain ends. And then we are saying the movement has a consciousness. It's an aggregated actor, and it can be understood in terms of a means-end rationality, of which Max Weber was one of the greatest and most sophisticated opponents. But I wonder whether there is any period or situation where a movement has taken a decision. Can you imagine that? What I can imagine, the closest case I can imagine was the coordination committee of the German peace movement, which existed for 4 or 5 years in the 80s. Here you had an almost perfect representation of the peace movement in terms of the different tendencies and organizational associations. And there were about 37 representatives, also of local groups, and for a while they were the core body who nominally or semi-officially represented the peace movement and took decisions on behalf of the peace movement. That is the case I know that comes closest to the idea of a social movement that is capable to take action, to decide something, to choose a strategy. But in almost all cases I know, and I know quite a number over time, this doesn't happen. You have groups who take decisions, who adopt strategies or reject strategies on a more specific level. And here also I think cross-movement mobilization takes place. And it's not at the level of movements as a whole. These are imagined constructions that help to have a sense of collective identity, but I doubt that these can be understood as collective actors. So they have to be understood as systems, but it's not the same as the market, I would argue also, because the market as a whole does not represent any ideological tendencies. This may be debated here, but it's those who are defending the market or who profit from the market incorporate an ideology, but the market as such, no. It has no aim, but it has functions. And so also social movements have functions. For instance, they modernize a system which they critique. That's probably not their intention, but quite often that's how it happens, how it occurs. They criticize the system, but in the end they stabilize the system because they improve the system.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And there was also one more question to be specific about from Stefan Rucht about the migration movements.
Right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for these questions, which are very actually provocative and stimulating, and I think will help me sort of continue to improve and reformulate my own perspective. Let me start out with the question of what kind of politics, and I'm not that kind of politics to be interpreted in a variety of ways, but I think that in the broadest sort of general strokes, we could say that sometimes politics is focused on institution building and norm construction. Tech and Thinking talk about entrepreneurs, etc. Now that's that particular kind of politics. A lot of my examples were actually focused on, and I think the kind of politics that is central to a great field of social movement action. On the other hand, politics may also involve contestation, struggle, and challenging existing power relations more directly. And that tends to be a different sort of politics, even though norm construction may also be challenging. If we think about contestation challenges, then obviously the targets for that contestation, the most obvious ones being, on the one hand, the power of capital and capitalism, and on the other hand, the power of states and the power of the repressive power of the state. And these two different targets for challenging are, of course, quite distinct. And if we look at the two movements that I was talking about, the human rights movement has primarily challenged states, challenged oppression, authoritarian and repressive states. On the other hand, the global labor movement has primarily challenged capital. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, what you find is that the human rights movement have moved in the direction of challenging capital, in the sense that those cases I was looking at are cases in which the power of capital, as in oil companies and Peruvian indigenous right, becomes the target of the human rights movement. So I think this, at the same time, I think it's very clear that labor understands that it must also challenge the state. This kind of fusion of targets is another way of thinking about the expansion of the ecosystem of different social movements. In any case, I think thinking about what kind of politics, what kind of targets, is a very important element in trying to understand the actions and strategies of social movement. And this brings us to the second question, what is the context for movements, which is, I think, an interrelated question. And looking transnationally, I think that we are experiencing a very interesting sea change in the context which social movements confront. And I feel that we still haven't fully comprehended or figured out how to react to this sea change. And the sea change, I think, is relatively clear. That is to say, for the last decade of the 20th century and into the beginning of the 21st century, the sort of normative and institutional and power complex that was being challenged was characterized as global neoliberalism or neoliberal capitalism. Now, neoliberalism had a particular character, and I've written a little bit about this, but it was a system which combined, on the one hand, liberal politics involving traditional sorts of democratic norms, but combined that with a very traditional set of capitalist power and used those liberal political norms as a way of legitimizing legitimating and reinforcing that capitalist power. So that set up a particular context for social movements, set up a particular ideological, institutional, and political context for them to run. Right now, if we look at the global level, it seems, and this has come up in a couple of questions and indeed there's talk, it seems that we are seeing a resurgence of what might be called a nationalist, populist configuration. And this is not just Donald Trump, although he is an excellent example, but obviously if we look at if we look at Erdogan, Turkey, in fact, if we look around Europe at challengers to the current status quo, we see a similar kind of nationalist populist ideology. And that really puts social movement, particularly transnational social movement, in a quite different position than they have been in the past. This is obviously particularly true of the transnational human rights movement, which can no longer count on being able to invoke traditional liberal norms as a way of protecting itself or gathering strength. But I do think that the shift in the transnational context from a global neoliberal capitalist context to one in which nationalist populist ideologies and state strategies play a more visible and powerful role is an important thing for social movement theorists to think about, obviously within individual national context, but also in terms of conceptualizing transnational and global context. Okay, and that, I guess, brings us nicely to the migrant rights movement. I would say that if I had added another example in my talk of the possibility of the labor movement becoming part of an ecosystem, it would have been what I see in the United States as an increasing construction of ties between migrant rights, between the rights of undocumented immigrants and labor rights and struggles by labor to confront capital in the United States. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Fight for 15 campaign, the fight for $15 an hour among underpaid service workers, and of course those workers are to an important degree, those workers are migrants, are people in many cases lacking status as documented citizens, and therefore when you organize those workers, you also must start thinking about your relationships with those communities. The labor movement, I think, in the United States at least, has been forced to rethink its relationship to those communities who are not documented. It's been forced to do this not out of some kind of altruism, but rather because if you don't organize those workers, you cannot organize the service sector in the United States, which you have to organize if you're going to be a labor movement in the United States. And so therefore, I think that the movement for migrant workers' rights and for organizing and mobilizing migrant workers and the traditional labor movement in the United States have been forced to try to build a new kind of relationships. And indeed, if we want to look at the political successes of labor, this kind of coalition has, in at least some instances, had quite substantial success. The best case that I know of is the state of Nevada in the United States. The state of Nevada, which is, of course, the home of Las Vegas, is also the home of one of the most successful unions in the United States, which is known as the Culinary. That is to say, a culinary has to do with kitchen workers, but this is a union of service workers. These workers are primarily workers of color, Latino, African American, and in many cases undocumented migrant workers. And the culinary basically turned Nevada into one of the surprising successes in the most recent American election. That is to say, they were able to knock on doors, mobilize, and deliver victories close to one of our first senators in the United States. And Clinton won Nevada, which she was not necessarily supposed to. So, all I'm saying is that this alliance or this understanding on the part of labor that it's important to focus on the energies and mobilization of migrant undocumented workers is one of the key aspects, I think, of labor building a new ecosystem in the United States. And of course, it also relates to the example of domestic workers and Convention 189. Obviously, domestic workers are also very often migrants, and very often migrants who lack documentation. Oops, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. I can't do it. That's domestic workers are also migrant workers, and therefore the relationship with labor organization and labor mobilization and migrant organization and migrant mobilization is, again, primary.
It says 1 minute, please.
Primary is the case of the domestic worker alliances and federations as well. And I'll quit there.
Okay, thank you. Because actually we have prepared a lot of fresh beer upstairs and of course some food, but the beer is in front of the food. So, yeah, and I'm very sorry that you can't join in, but I promise you second round. So I think we collect 2 more questions and then each of you gets the very last minutes and the concluding remarks. Please.
Well, thank you very much. If we talk about action systems or ecosystems, I think we have to find a way to conceptualize power differences inside movements. If the elephant cooperates with the ants, the Ameisen and the elephant, they have diverse resources. Maybe the ants are even stronger because they can erode the house. The elephant can push it over. But I think we have to find a way, I'm using animals now, how to conceptualize power differences between core workers and migrant workers. And it becomes more complicated even if we see in the issue of gender that you have the barrier between private and public. And to organize it all means you have to get into the ecosystem. So if I may mention it, Peter, if you say the main criterion is public protest, you have to look at the threshold. How do people come to do public protest. Okay, so how can we conceptualize these power differentials and the threshold between private and public, which means the access to public has to be conquered?
Okay, the last two questions. Christina?
Hi there. Hi, Peter. This is Christina Fleischer, your former student. Hello. To both Peter and Dita, first of all, thank you so much. And what I'm going to say is a comment, but I don't think it's one that you would be disagreeing with. It's just something I wanted to highlight. I think part of the problem, and maybe the recurring theme that's coming up here when we think about power, we think about different forms of the politics, what does the politics look like, is that I think a lot of our theoretical models place far too much emphasis precisely on protest, precisely on the visible, precisely on mobilization as being the key, or of course, as Dieter correctly said, it is one of the defining aspects and it's absolutely essential. But I think sometimes we forget all the other things that social movements actually do. And I think that when we think about cross-movement mobilization, we need to take a step really back and think much more about, again, Dieter mentioned many of these factors, the things that create those bonds, the things that create those alliances, the things that combat fear, combat isolation, build that collective identity. And so we need to integrate that realization into our theoretical models as well, and to pay attention to the latent, not just the visible, as Malucci would say. And I think maybe one of the things that we're thinking of, and Peter's examples really made me think about this, I think we have this idea that protest is the way that change happens. We have almost a mechanistic understanding that if you get, enough people on the street, then policy will change or people will listen. But we know, in fact, that's not actually the case. So maybe being flexible about thinking about how does change actually occur, how can we make change happen, and I think some of the examples that Peter gave, probably, I don't know anything about those particular examples, Peter, but I'm guessing that probably those victories you were referring to didn't really come about necessarily through mass mobilization or protest primarily, but through alliances and strategic negotiation. So just a comment really more than a question, since we're winding down, but thank you both very much for such stimulating talk.
So thank you from my side also for your presentations. My name is Cristina Espinosa, and I am working at the Arnold Bergstrasse Institute for Cultural Studies here in Germany, in Freiburg. And my question has to do with the non-human and the things. So how can we start to theorize about the things that are actually connecting these movements? So I'm speaking about communication technologies, but all of these other material aspects that appear to be in a way absent in much of the scholarship that's dealing with social movements and also transnational movements. And I wonder to which extent you think that engaging with science and technology studies could maybe advance theorization in this direction.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you both get about 2 minutes roughly to wrap up your session, maybe 3. Please, keep that starting.
Yes, you pointed to several elements in social movements, and I fully agree. So at a closer look inside a social movement, we find different kinds of animals. You mentioned ants and elephants. So there are big ones and small ones, and not necessarily the big ones are the most effective. So the ants or the termiten, I don't know what is the English term, they can undermine the construction of the building over a long period, and then the building crashes down, but there was no elephant involved. Yeah. So I think this is a very important observation. You also mentioned the distinction between private and public, and also this brings me probably to one of the other questions. Protest, as I indicated, as we all know, is the visible part. It's designed to become visible for the public. But it's not the only part, and sometimes people or groups work over years without any protest event. So they celebrate anniversaries, they tell stories, they have internal conflicts, they collect resources, they collect information, they write dossiers or papers, and so on and so on. And in a merely quantitative perspective, this makes probably, I don't know, 70-80% of the life of what we might call a protest group. But we also have to acknowledge that protest, although it may be very short, often requires a lot of investment, which is invisible. Preparation of protest and so on, collection of money, training for civil disobedience. Quite often it also involves work after the protest. Reading the press, what was wrong, did we phrase this, frame this in a good way, and so on, and so on. So you also mentioned the latent periods. That was Milucci's observation of social movements, or what was called in the feminist theorizing a movement in abeyance. So we also have to be aware of these non-visible aspects of social movement. Finally, the second, Christina, you emphasized the non-human or the material elements in the social movement. I must confess that I haven't deeply thought about this, and I wasn't clear what you had in mind. Of course, material aspects are involved, such as money or other kinds of resources, rooms, technology, and so on and so on, photos, memories. This is part of our life. We are not just working on the level of software. Every movement also has to rely on hardware aspects, places to meet, etc. But I don't know, you said this has to be considered, I agree, but is there any argument related to that? So that would be my question to you.
Yes, thank you again for a great set of questions. I won't be able to respond to all of them by any means because I don't want to be standing between all of the participants and their beer and food. But let me just make two things. One, just to emphasize that the issues raised in this last set of questions are extremely important, and I'll just talk about two of them. One is the question of communication technology. Obviously, a 21st century social movement has got to be able to deal with the digital world. It's got to be able to deal with social media, has to be able to deal with communicating in various kinds of cyber strategies. There have developed some organizations like Avad, are essentially virtual social movements and operate essentially exclusively on the internet. But I would say that this is a good example of how we need to think about things as an ecology of movements, because those movements, while an essential part of the overall social movement configuration, cannot be more than a part and must be combined very strategically with other kinds of physical manifestation and protest and so on. The second point I think is essential to underline is this question of differential. because power differentials within movement are a key part of trying to understand the power of movement. One of the critiques of the human rights movement was that too much power in the movement had accumulated to a couple of particularly large organizations like Amnesty, Human Rights Watch. These organizations were monopolizing a power within the movement at the expense of the movement's overall effectiveness. And so one of the transformations of an ecosystem has been for organizations, particularly organizations in the global south, to rethink the organizational power potential within that movement. Likewise, obviously, my example of the labor movement as a feminist movement depends essentially on restructuring power differentials within labor movement such that women within traditional labor organizations and the relationship between traditional organizations, which tend to be male-dominated, although are much less so than were, the relationship between traditional male-dominated organizations and newer organizations which allow for a more gender equity distribution of power is essential to the survival of the global movement as well as national labor movements. So I would just underline the fact that those issues of power differential are absolutely fundamental to thinking about efficacy and power of social movements in general. So I'm going to quit there, and one more time, thank you all very much for including me virtually in your discussion. It's been a huge pleasure, and I'm so sorry that I am not now able to step out of my computer and go have a beer with all of you.